I, 22 male, just learned that my sister, 29 female, had an abortion to be able to donate me part of her liver. It caused her divorce, and I can't stop hating myself. I was very sick 4 years ago and was in need of a liver transplant. My situation was that it was very unlikely that I would get one in time. At that time, my sister was pregnant. I didn't know as it was early and she was only 2 months. My situation was getting worse and my sister decided to have an abortion, and then 2 months later, we did the transplant surgery. Oh my god, what a nice sister. I never knew about the pregnancy. All I knew was that she gave me half of the liver. My sister and her husband divorced a year later. I didn't know the truth until yesterday when my mom slipped up about the abortion that my sister had. I asked her about it and she told me everything. She told me that my sister made her promise not to tell me and she failed that promise. My sister was very happy. My brother-in-law was a very decent guy. I knew they were looking forward to having children. They were great together. She always told us about how lucky she is to have found him. Apparently, at the time of their decision, my sister and her husband had great disagreement. He didn't want her to have the abortion and risk the transplant surgery and was hopeful that my situation might sort itself out without my sister's help. The chance was very small, but it was there. My sister didn't agree. They couldn't convince one another, and my sister did things anyway without his blessing. They tried working things out after the surgery. They went to counseling. They even tried to have another baby, but they couldn't get themselves to do it. He couldn't forgive my sister, and she wasn't all that apologetic, so they ended up separating and eventually divorcing. I asked my mom if my sister still thinks that she did the right thing, and she said she's not sure. I can't stop feeling guilty. My sister saved my life, but destroyed her own life by doing it. She had to abort the baby she definitely loved and looked forward to, and did that knowing that it will probably end her marriage as well. I was ready to go at that time. I had accepted my fate and I was at peace. She should have just let me. My brother-in-law should have told me, so I would have talked her out of it. I'm surprised he didn't, and I can't feel anything but hate for myself. I don't know what to do. Should I talk to my sister? What should I tell her? Should I keep my mouth shut and pretend that I don't know? I'm not sure if I'll ever be able to look into her eyes and not show that I know. I just don't know what to do. Please, please help me. Did I mess up by asking a coworker how his girlfriend's driving test went? Me and another coworker accidentally triggered one of our other coworkers. We have a small workplace/shop where everyone's business is constantly spread around. So a coworker of ours recently started dating a girl after splitting from his wife. This new girl was a few years younger than him and did not have a driver's license and was going to college. We would kind of tease him about driving his girlfriend everywhere. He was also somewhat reserved in speaking about his relationship like intimacy, but he would laugh everything off. Anyways, he requested some time off to go take his girlfriend to do her driving test. Later in the afternoon, he came back to the shop, and when he walked in, I asked, "So, how did the test go?" And my other coworker said, "Yeah, did she pass it?" In response, he just looked at both of us in a confused way and angrily spouted, "What the F?" He shook his head and said, "Why does everyone need to know all my business?" And then he went on about how nobody can have a personal life at this place. After his rant, he said, "It went all right. The doctor just gave her some cream and said that she will need to apply for a few weeks, and if I develop anything, I will too. But right now, I'm fine." Silence. I looked at my other coworker and he looked at me like, "What the?" Both of us cracked a smile, and then I looked back at him and said, "The driving test?" And his face went so red, he hurriedly said, "Oh yeah, she passed it," and quickly left. My other coworker and I busted out laughing. So this dude's girlfriend had picked up an STD from a different dude. Not long after that, everyone in the shop did know his business, but it was his own fault, right?
I'm 57 and my son, 28, recently approached me upset about something his sister, 30, told him about the past that she's apparently still resentful of, although she's never spoken to me about it. My daughter has always been anxious and from a young age, around 5, did a lot of weird rituals to make herself feel better. These rituals often required my husband and I to participate, and we generally went along with it to make her happy. In middle school, she stopped this habit but developed a new one where she would lie frequently to me and my husband. At one point, she was almost a month behind in school, and when her teacher reached out to us, we were both blindsided because she'd been deceiving us that everything was fine. She would also lie about things like who she was or having a boyfriend, which was very secretive. When she was in grade 7, I saw in her computer browser that she'd been Googling OCD. I questioned her about it and she said that she thought she had it and wanted to go to a doctor, using her childhood habits as proof. I felt that she was lying again to excuse her school performance, and we told her no. She intermittently argued about it with us for 2 years. At that point, I discovered by reading her journal that she'd also gone behind our backs to the guidance counselor at school and told a woman that we wouldn't help her. I grounded her for lying again, but a few months later, we did take her to the doctor. She has more or less been in treatment since then. My son recently asked me if I really denied her medical treatment. To me, she's making it sound like I was negligent when she really was a liar, and that's why we didn't take her initially. We have paid for specialists and supported her for years, and I think she's putting all the blame on me / making me look bad to my son and not taking responsibility. I'm upset with her sneaky behavior and want to confront her, but my husband said to leave it. My daughter had a wonderful childhood, and I hate that she's complaining about the past behind my back. We did our best and we did help her. She has never mentioned anything to me about still being resentful. Am I the asshole in this situation?
Storytime about how my boss severely bullied me because she was envious of me. I work at a really high-end nail salon. I'm talking about $200 to $300 per manicure and pedicure. So it's very high-end and our clientele is very rich. My goal has been to open my own nail salon, but it hasn't happened yet. Obviously, I don't have enough money to open it, so I needed to get a job. This new nail salon had opened up near my house. It was the prettiest thing I'd ever seen in my life, so I definitely wanted to get a job there. I went in for an interview with the owner of the nail salon. During the interview, she was really nice, but kind of gave off that queen bee vibe. Like, she was the popular girl and she didn't want anyone else to be popular or pretty. I got a call from her a week later and she asked me if I could do her nails to see how well I did. And when I did her nails, she was impressed. She said that I was really good and that I was hired immediately. I started working and within the first month, I had the biggest clientele list. A lot of clients were asking for me to do their nails. And when other clients heard the other clients ask for me, they also started asking for me. You know, word of mouth. I was extremely proud of myself. Not only was I making a lot of money, but I was actually building a clientele base that really loved my work. Don't get me wrong, the other girls at the salon were actually really good, and so was the owner. If we were really busy, sometimes the owner would pick up any walk-in clients. And one of the walk-in clients came in and asked specifically for me. The owner told her that I was busy and that she would do her nails. That's when the girl said that she would come back whenever I was available. My boss quickly snapped at the girl and told her that she was just as good as I was. The worst part was that she said it loud enough so that everyone in the salon could hear her. The client clearly felt uncomfortable but agreed to it anyway. Later that day on my break, I could hear my boss talking in the kitchen. I decided to wait outside and see what she was saying. Sure enough, she was talking about me and telling one of the other girls that I thought I was too pretty for this job and that I didn't have any experience. She also said that I probably just watched YouTube videos in order to learn. Number one, I have 10 years of experience. And number two, it doesn't matter if you watch YouTube videos as long as you're learning. This obviously hurt my feelings and I tried not to cry. Then I realized that she did it on purpose. She was speaking really loudly and she knew that I was about to go on break. That's when I realized that she was definitely trying to bully me. The following day, I get a phone call from her telling me that I should stay home. When I asked her why, she said that she hired a new girl. And she said, in fact, don't come at all this week. And she basically hung up on me. After she told me not to come into work for an entire week because she was hiring a new girl, I decided to go in the following day and just make sure that I still had my job. I walked in and said hi to everyone. This is when, once again, I catch her talking trash about me with the new girl. She told the new girl that I thought I was better than everyone and that she should definitely stay away from me. But again, I didn't say anything just because I didn't want to have any confrontations with my boss. I waited a few seconds, knocked on the door, and entered. I asked her if I could speak to her and she said yes. I told her I couldn't stay off working for a full week. This is when she said, okay, fine, you can come in tomorrow. But you're gonna have to train the new girl because she has zero experience. So essentially, I wasn't gonna be doing anyone's nails, I was gonna be training the new girl. This made me upset, but I knew that I needed to play my cards right. So I said yes with a smile on my face. I trained the new girl for the entire week and she actually turned out to be pretty good at nails. The following week, she was even taking on clients for gel manicures. Now, I thought this was going to make my boss upset, but it actually made her really happy. Finally, I see that everyone's starting to pack up their stuff to leave early. I asked one of the girls what was happening and she said that everyone was going to dinner together. I said, oh, okay. And she said, weren't you told? No, I was not told. I knew this was another intimidation/bullying tactic from my boss. My boss had even invited the new girl and not me. They all left, went to dinner, and my boss pretended not to even see me when she was leaving. The following day, I come into work and one of my clients is already waiting for me. We sit down at the table and my client begins to tell me that my boss was talking trash about me before I came in and that she even did it in front of the clients. She informed me that my boss was talking trash about my body, my hair, and my clothes, and that I was basically a JLo knockoff. I quit on the spot and took all my clients with me, over 22 women. I opened my own salon 2 months later. I'm now her competition. She sent me a message apologizing, but I haven't responded. What should I say?
Am I the asshole for making my daughter do all the Christmas cleaning because of the gift she got my wife? I've been with my wife for 4.5 years. She suffered from breast cancer and we got married after she completed her treatment. This is our first Christmas together as a married couple. I have a 16-year-old daughter who can tolerate but not accept her stepmom and can be passive-aggressive towards her. She's done some things in the past that she should have got punishments for, but my wife has been graceful and forgiving. In my opinion, she's gotten out of control, especially with lack of consequences. There's been tension around the holiday and my daughter decided to spend Christmas with us because her mom is going out of town. My wife was thrilled with my daughter staying with us. She prepared everything and I helped here and there while my daughter was on her phone. Christmas dinner went fine, though my wife seemed a bit upset. She refused to say what was wrong till I pressured her. She then opened the box my daughter got her for Christmas and there was a bra inside it. My wife broke down crying in the kitchen. I was fuming. I called my daughter and confronted her about the gift. She tried to say it wasn't malicious, but I disagreed and said it was purposely done to offend her stepmom and mock her illness. I decided to punish her by having her do all the cleaning after the guests left, but she tried to get out of it by calling her stepbrother to come pick her up and take her to her mom's house. I caught her at the door and kicked her stepbrother out and told her to start cleaning up immediately. She went hysteric, yelling about how cruel I was to punish her on Christmas, and how insensitive my wife was to be offended by a bra. She went hysteric, yelling about how cruel I was to punish her on Christmas and how insensitive my wife was to be offended by a bra. I refused to engage in her yelling matches and made sure she did all the cleaning, which my wife said was a lot. She asked me to let my daughter go to her mom's house, but I insisted not until the punishment was complete. My daughter called her stepbrother again and left later. She immediately called her mom, who came after me for doing what I did and ruining Christmas for her. I had an argument with her about what our daughter did, and she sided with her and called me an abusive and robot controlled by my wife, even though my wife asked me to let it go. She got my former in-laws involved, and they have been criticizing me about what I did. So am I the asshole?
Okay, so the summer before my senior year, I go on a school trip to Paris, and I'm super excited because I'd never been outside of the country before. I hadn't even been on a plane. My best friend was coming, but most importantly, this guy that I had a crush on was going to be there. And he had recently just got out of a relationship, and I was like, yes, this is my time to shine. I'm literally going to be in the city of love. My life is going to be a motherfucking movie, bitch. So the trip was about 2 weeks, almost 2 weeks long, and we spent a majority of that time just the two of us together. We didn't spend time with our respective friends, so and normally this wouldn't be weird if we were close, but we weren't. So it didn't make sense for us to be spending this much time together unless there was something going on. And I wasn't the only one who thought this, because we would come back from spending free time in the city and the teacher chaperones would be like, "Are you two having fun?" And I would be like, "Yeah, we're having a lot of fun." I was like, they all know. I was like, I'm not the only one who thinks this. I'm not crazy. I'm not delusional. Cut to the very last day of the trip. I make an innocent little joke about us going on a date, and it was not well received. Found out that he does not like me. Was obviously devastated. Was like, let me kill myself. I cried the whole way home, which was like an 8-hour flight and a 4-hour bus ride, which was so slay of me. And we kind of started talking a lot less. You know, he would still talk to me, and obviously I wasn't over it, so I would keep talking to him. He would give me a little bit of attention, and I would eat that shit up. It would sustain me for way too long. I did not respect myself during this period of time. Still don't, but, you know, work in progress. So anyway, cut to January of 2018. I'm back home after my first semester of college. It's my birthday. I'm having a birthday party at my friend's apartment. I'm super drunk. He is obviously invited because I'm messy. He waltzes in, and I decide this is the perfect time to verbally assault him. So I go up to him in front of everyone, and I'm like, "You're a bitch. Do you fucking love me on? Fuck you." And he's like, "Yeah, I'm really sorry I led you on. I don't have a better response. I just can only apologize. I'm so sorry." And I'm like, "It's okay. I can forgive, but I don't forget. Never forget 9/11. And so cut to the end of the night. Everyone is either drunk, passed out in a different room, or hooking up with somebody in a different part of the apartment or whatever. And so there's just the two of us sitting on the couch. One thing leads to another, and he leans in to kiss me, and I go, "Wait, you said you don't like me. What?" And he was like, "Yeah, that doesn't mean we can't have some fun." And I was like, "Do I ruin my life right now?" I was like, "Yeah, let me ruin my life." I was like, "You're right." So we proceed to hook up. And at the end of it, I thought it'd be really funny to say, "So, like, what are we?" That moment was like roaches scattered, and he promptly left. But the moral of the story is, don't go get the dick if you know it's not right for you.
Story time about how I crashed my dad's really expensive car. So a little background information. My mom had just got remarried to my stepdad 3 years ago, and he was this rich asshole who owned a bunch of food trucks and thought he was the shit. Well, at the time I also had a boyfriend. And we had only been dating for like a month and a half. My boyfriend would always beg me to let him drive my stepdad's car. And I always said no because that was like his child. Like he had children. He could care less about them. His car was more important. Anyway, so the one weekend my parents are out of town and one of my friends was throwing a graduation party. So that whole day my boyfriend was trying to talk me into taking the car, and I already knew where my stepdad hid the keys. So I just decided I wouldn't drink that night and I would just take the car. He kept asking me if he could drive, but clearly I said no, because this kid literally told me that he crashed the first 2 cars that he had. So we get to the party, we're having a good time, and one of my friends tells me that everybody's taking pictures with my car outside. Like for part 2. Part 2 about how I crashed my dad's very expensive car. So like I said, everybody's taking pictures of the car, but I decided to let it go at first. I mean, there was one point where I went outside just so that way I could kind of let everybody know, hey, you're taking pictures with my car. Well, half an hour later, my boyfriend and I decided to leave, and he's obliterated. Like, we probably got 50 feet from her house, and then I had to stop the car so that way he could get out and throw up in somebody's yard. Anyway, so he gets in the car, we're on the way back to my house. And my house was like a 20-minute drive away. Well, we were 5 minutes from my house. At this one intersection, I get a green light and I go to make a right, and I accidentally hit a car turning out of the bar parking lot. So I'm literally freaking the fuck out. And my boyfriend's in the seat next to me crying for some reason. So the guy in the other car calls the cops. The cops show up, they call my stepdad and my mom. My boyfriend went to the hospital, he had alcohol poisoning. Well, my boyfriend told his mom that it was all my fault and I'm grounded for 6 months. Story time about how I was dating the school shooter. Yeah. So a little background information. I was a sophomore whenever this all happened. And it was around October. Well, the one day I was sitting at lunch with my group of friends. We're all sitting there having a good time when one of my friends dares me to go over and sit with this one kid. And he was sitting alone. He was kind of shy. And of course I did because they had offered me $10, guys. Can't beat that. So I go over there, we start talking, and I realize that he's actually really nice. And he's really hot. I never really saw what he looked like because he was always wearing hoodies during school. Anyways, we started hanging out more, and eventually he said that he liked me, and we started dating. The relationship seemed pretty perfect. Well, 6 months in, I think he started to trust me more. Because he had told me about this one group of girls that he absolutely hated. This group of girls just happened to be my friends. I didn't tell him that I was friends with these girls because they were considered controversial. Like for part 2. Part 2 about how I was dating the school shooter. Like I said, I had never told him that I was friends with these girls because they were controversial, but he would go on for hours about how much he hated these girls. He went as far to say that he wanted to kill them. I didn't think anything of it at first because him and I had more of a sarcastic sense of humor, but he started to sound more and more serious every time that he would talk about it. Well, after us dating for 10 months, he calls me the one night and he starts telling me about how he's going to shoot up the school. He had told me his entire plan of how he was going to do this. Now, he must have thought that we were like ride or die relationship, when in reality, I was recording everything that he was saying. After we got off the phone, I wrote an email to all of the office staff in my school, but I fell asleep and never finished the email. I woke up the next morning, finished it. I had texted my friends not to go to school that day. I had already missed the bus. I rode my bike to school that day. I ran to the principal's office, nobody was there, and that's whenever I heard shots in the hallway. Crazy story time about how I found my aunt and my boyfriend hooking up at a family function. So every year my mom and stepdad would have a Christmas party and everyone from both sides of the family would come. And I also invited my boyfriend. And at this time my boyfriend and I were both juniors in high school. So everybody came to the party and everything was going good. Well, like an hour into the party, all the adults were super drunk. So before we all opened gifts, I decided to help my mom clean up dinner. So while I'm washing the dishes, I look over and my aunt and boyfriend are talking a lot. And she started to get really touchy with him, but I didn't think anything of it because she was super drunk. So after I'm done cleaning up, we all start opening gifts. And my boyfriend goes up to my room to go get his phone off the charger. And after he went upstairs, my aunt was like, "Oh, I need to go throw up." So about 10 minutes goes past and my boyfriend's still up in the room grabbing his phone, so I went to check on him. And I walk upstairs to see my aunt and my boyfriend laying on my bed making out. Like for part 2. Part 2 to how I caught my aunt and my boyfriend hooking up at a family function. So like I said, they are laying on my bed making out. Doors wide open, they don't even bother to shut the door. And both of their shirts are off. And I think I should just put in here, my aunt is like 28. She's on my stepdad's side. She's really young. So they look up and my aunt's just like drunk as fuck looking at me. And she's like, "Do you want to join?" Like, bitch, what the fuck? So I'm just like shook. And I start screaming. Everybody rushes up the stairs and my mom pushes me out of the way and sees my boyfriend and my aunt laying on my bed with their shirts off. So my mom starts screaming at everybody. So my mom calls the cops, says that an adult is touching an underage boy, and she calls his mom, tells her what happened. So my boyfriend and I broke up, so that spread around the whole school, and word got out that they actually started seeing each other.
Story time about how my boyfriend cheated on me with a 17-year-old girl. So when summer started, I started working at this new job, and I had a really good connection with one of my coworkers, and he was 28 years old. So we started talking, but I would get mad at him a lot because he would ignore my messages asking to hang out. And on top of that, every time that we got done with work, we would all go sit and eat, and he would sit next to this one girl. And by the way, she was 17. And I could see them flirting all the time. Well, finally, once summer ended, she moved away. And then I felt like I had a real chance to start dating him. So we started hanging out a lot and hooking up a lot. After a few months, I started taking our relationship serious. Well, apparently not for him, because there was this girl on his phone that he had been texting a lot. So weirdly enough, after that, I get a DM from the girl that he would always flirt with at work. And she asked me if I was dating him. And I said, yeah. And then she goes, "Oh, well, he's been texting me a lot." So then I blocked her and went and hooked up with one of his friends that night, like for part 2. Part 2 about how my boyfriend was cheating on me with a 17-year-old girl. So like I said, I hooked up with this friend that night, but I didn't tell him for a couple months because he would always say that we weren't dating, even though we were basically in a relationship. So we were doing really good until around Christmas time. So after he gave me my gifts, which was socks and a candle, he left for Massachusetts. I don't know if I said that right. And a month before this, I had unblocked the girl that he was flirting with. So weirdly enough, after he left, she DM'd me. basically asking if I was still dating him again. And I was like, yeah, why? And she goes, well, I need to tell you something. He actually took my virginity, and he's been sending me a lot of gifts, like a record player and albums, and we've been talking on the phone every night. So when I confronted him about it, he said he felt bad for her because he took her virginity. So after that, I confessed to hooking up with his best friend and called him a child predator.
Am I the asshole for making my daughter do all the post-Christmas celebration cleaning because of the gift she gave to my wife? I've been with my wife for 4.5 years. She suffered from breast cancer and we got married after she completed her treatment. This is also our first Christmas together as a married couple. I have a 16-year-old daughter who can tolerate, but not accept her stepmother, and can be passive-aggressive towards her sometimes. She's done some things in the past that warranted a number of punishments, but my wife has been graceful and forgiving, saying my daughter's a typical teenager and trying to adapt. But in my opinion, she has gotten out of control, especially with the lack of consequences. There's been tension around the holiday, and surprisingly, my daughter decided to spend Christmas with us, saying her mom went to visit her future stepdad's family a few towns over. My wife was thrilled with my daughter staying with us. She prepared everything and I helped her here and there while my daughter was on her phone the entire time. I welcomed my in-laws and we had a great time throughout the day. Christmas dinner went fine, though my wife seemed a bit upset. She refused to say what's wrong till I pressured her. She then opened the box that my daughter gave to her for Christmas, and there was a bra inside of it. My wife broke down crying in the kitchen. I was fuming. I called for my daughter and confronted her about the gift. She tried to explain it wasn't malicious, but I disagreed and said it was, and it was purposely done to offend her stepmom and mock her illness. I decided to punish her by having her do all the cleaning after the guests left, and she tried to evade it by saying okay, then turning around and calling her stepbrother to come pick her up and take her to her mother's house. I caught her by the door and kicked her stepbrother out and told her to start cleaning up immediately. She went hysterical, yelling about how cruel I was to punish her on Christmas and how unsensitive and unladylike my wife was to be offended by the bra. I refused to engage in her yelling matches and made sure she did all the cleaning, which my wife said was a lot, and asked me to let my daughter go to her mom's house. But I insisted not until the punishment was complete. My daughter called her stepbrother again and left later. She immediately called her mom, who came after me on stepmom, and berated me for doing what I did and ruining Christmas for her. I had an argument with her about what our daughter did, and she sided with her and called me abusive and a robot controlled by my wife, though my wife asked me to let it go. She got my former in-laws involved, and they have been criticizing me about what I did. Am I the asshole?
Storytime about when I messed up by not telling my wife that our son was coming home. My oldest son is in the Marines and hasn't been home in almost a year. He took 10 days leave so he could come visit. At first, we didn't tell his mother in case the leave got denied. When it was approved, he just decided to fly in and surprise her. I tell my wife that I'm going over to a friend's house to watch the Packers/Falcons game as a cover-up to pick him up. I get to the airport and actually watch the second quarter of the game while waiting for his plane. He gets off the plane, we talk for a bit, waiting for the luggage, and then he goes to change into his dress blues. Now the whole time I've been texting my wife saying I was bored, the game sucked, I wasn't going to stay much longer. We discussed the plan on how to surprise his mother on the drive back to the house. We go back and forth from having her open the front door to see him on the porch to just having him walk into the house. We settle on him waiting a few minutes after I go inside as I want to get the whole thing on video. I walk in and the house is quiet. No one is in the living room. A little odd, but it is after 9 p.m. Maybe by some miracle my other kids are actually already in bed. Alarm bells start going off in my head when I open the bedroom door, and the first thing I notice is the flickering candlelight. What I didn't know was the entire time that I was gone, my wife set in motion her own plan for the evening. She got the kids settled by letting them keep their tablets after bedtime, took a nice hot bath, redid her makeup, and when I told her I was on the way home, lit the room with candles and put on her F me lingerie. So no shit, there I was, staring at my wife giving me her best come hither look with our 21-year-old son outside not 30 feet away, waiting to surprise her. A handful of reactions to the scene are acceptable. Pulling out your cell phone and sending a text message is not one. The text told my son to stay outside. I had solved the most immediate problem of our son walking in and seeing his mother like that, but I was drawing blank on how to fix everything else. So my brain latched onto what was the most stupid plan I have ever had in my life. I told my wife to get dressed because she would never believe what the neighbors were doing and she had to come see. The look of confusion on her face was priceless. It took me 5 minutes to convince her to put on some sweatpants and a sweatshirt to go to the front door. Finally, after dodging all her questions and getting her to open the door, there was our son in his dress uniform and she was ecstatic. The noise brought all the kids out and everyone was happy. Except me. The wife excused herself after a few minutes and took off the laundry under her sweats before anyone noticed. It goes without saying, I did not get any action that night.
Have you heard of the phrase, don't share where you sleep? I shot where I slept. Basically, I lived in student housing, but I also worked there. Like, I was the front desk boy. Gave everyone their packages and shit, you know what I mean? But there's a downside to that. Everyone feels comfortable around you to the point where they call you, text you all the time, and it's usually for, like, lockouts and stuff like that. However, some of them want to be friends sometimes. This is what I thought this was, but it wasn't. Anyways, down the hall, there's this girl. We're going to call her Emma. Emma lives down the hall. She's 4'11", very, like, petite frame. And she's usually very nice. I've spoken to her 3 times, all in the elevator. It's usually, hi, Emma, and she usually gets my name wrong. She just goes, like, hi, Adobo, or some shit like that, whatever. So usually, like, I've never spoken to her. I don't know her. But we know where we live, right? So one time she knocks on my door. And I opened the door, and I was just like, oh, hey, Emma, what's up? And she goes, like, I was expecting, like, either, honestly, friendship lockout. You know what I mean? Either or. And she just, like, looks at me and she's like, hey, so I have an event, like, later today, and I, like, have to wear something oversized for it. I was just wondering if I could borrow one of your hoodies. She just called me fat. She just called me. And, like, it's so innocent. Like, she mean it. You know what I mean? But she did. You know what I mean? Like, she left every single friend of hers that lives on our floor, went to the stranger's, you know, dorm, knocked there, and asked for my hoodie. Well, and she was like, yeah, the one you were wearing would be great. What? Like, that's so fucking rude. And I didn't know what to say because it's like, you know what I mean? Like, it's awkward. Like, I don't know what to say. So I just, like, looked at her and I was like, yeah, sure. And then I walked inside. I was like, did she just fucking do that, bro? Like, what the fuck? So I go to my roommate. He's like an X small. That's his size. And I was like, dude, can I borrow one of your hoodies? And he was like, yeah, sure. Why the fuck would you need one? I was like, don't ask. And I took it. And I like, opened the door again. I was like, hey, Emma. Here's my favorite hoodie. What are you gonna fucking say? No way that's your hoodie. It's an X small. You can't fucking say that. So I just gave it to her and I looked at her and I was like, yeah, here, it's my favorite hoodie. I feel like it'll be great for this event. And she looked at it and looked at, like, she literally was like this. She was like, and looked at the size and she was like, oh, this is your favorite hoodie? What about the one that you're wearing? I was like, no, I'm gonna wear it today. What about that one? That's my favorite. You don't like it? She's like, what about that red one? I was like, laundry. She was like, I don't care. I was like, no, it's at the laundry, sorry. And she just, like, kept insisting on a different hoodie. And I was like, no, this is the only one you're getting. I'm so sorry. Obviously she didn't fucking wear it. And I confronted her just for jokes. You know, I work front desk. And when she came home, like, the next day, I was just like, oh, I saw your Snapchat story. What happened to that hoodie? And she's like, oh, I never got to wear it. One of my friends gave me a hoodie before that, you know, because he's like oversized. And I was like, oh, like his hoodie? And she was like, no, he's just fat. Fuck her. So my friend asked me to go camping, and I've only gone camping once in my life and never fucking again. Basically, in high school, I had to do Duke a bit, and Brett, if you know, you know. But basically, they take us to the middle of the desert, make us, like, do hiking shit, whatever. But, like, basically, I went to school in Saudi Arabia, so fucking hot. And I went to British school, so lots of white people in the middle of a Middle Eastern country. It's fine. They take us to, like, the middle of the desert, right? And, like, as a backup, they do have a bathroom and, like, for emergencies only, and, like, a backup, like, big tent where it could fit, like, 50 people, whatever. But other than that, middle of nowhere, right? So we get there, we set up camp, like, all this shit, and I needed to pee, and no offense, like, I don't give a fuck. Like, I'm not peeing outside if there's a fucking bathroom, you know what I mean? So I went to the bathroom. And I guess I was the first one to use it. Bro, shit went down inside. Like, that was, not with me. Shit went down prior to me going inside that bathroom. Like, there was on the walls, like, on the floor, like, everywhere, like, on the sink. I was like, bro, someone sacrificed someone inside. Like, there's no fucking way. Like, something went down in this bathroom that was, like, unholy. Like, this shit is cursed, right? So I was like, obviously, like, I'm 16. So I go outside and I tell my friends, I'm like, dude, someone died inside. Like, there's no way. Like, there's a haunting. Like, this place, cursed. There's no way. And I was like, I didn't pee fucking inside. Like, are you kidding me? Like, I'll lose an ear by next year. Like, there's no way. So by the end of the night, mass hysteria, right? Like, the entire campsite, everyone thinks this shit is haunted. Like, something's going on. Like, blah, 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 blah. So then the next day, they put us in random groups, right? They don't let you just pick your groups. And they put me with the principal's daughter. And I was with, like, 2 of my friends. And we're just talking, like, whatever. And, like, she's talking with her other friend. They're in front of us, and, like, we overheard, bro, I feel so fucking bad. This girl, this is the conversation. She goes, do you know what? Oh, I'm on my period. It's the worst timing. It's absolutely the worst timing. I was taking out my tampon in the bathroom, and it flung out, and it flew on the wall, and got stuck there. And I was trying to like take it out, and it flung out, and it fell on the floor. I didn't want to touch it on the floor, so I just like grabbed tissues, and I was trying to grab it, but then it kept falling. So it just like stained all the floor and the walls. And then I threw it in the bin, and then I tried to wash my hands, but I left like a few prints on them, and it's just so hot. It started like drying, and I couldn't like wash it off, and I didn't know what to do, like blah blah. Bro, this poor girl just was on her period, and I did all that. Bro, I feel so bad. I feel so bad. Like, I feel like it's so embarrassing already to be 16 and like have your period on a camping trip, and I did that to you. Like, I feel so bad. I had to apologize to the entire group, like, and the entire class, obviously, and to her especially, like, afterwards, because, you know, the principal's her fucking dad. But, bro, I feel so bad, like, well, I didn't mean it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I genuinely thought, like, hey, what was happening in that bathroom. I had no fucking clue.
So I really didn't expect that to blow up the first time, let alone the second, so I guess I owe you guys a story time. I am not here to bash anybody or drag anybody's name through the mud, just simply here to tell my side of the story. Essentially, I was just tired of being his mother, and she's a whole other story. But whenever it came down to bills and financials, you know, that's the number one reason why married people get divorced. And I will say that I was definitely doing more than my fair share. And that was always a discussion, but it wasn't just that. It was also, I was expected to work 48 hours, come home, cook, clean, do everything while he would play Xbox or hang out with his friends. And just at 20, now 9, I didn't expect to be divorced, but I also didn't want to be in that marriage where it just felt like so much was on me all of the time, because that wasn't a partnership. Now, with all of that said, don't think I didn't try. Divorce was definitely not the easy way out for us. Honestly, with his mindset, it probably would have been easier just to stay married, because divorce is hard. I don't care what anybody says. It's not easy emotionally, in most cases financially. So I did give him a 3-month ultimatum, and I know a lot of people don't necessarily agree with that. To each their own. But month 4 came around, and I just wasn't seeing a lot of change. Whenever that happened, I was just done. I threw in the towel. Like, this wasn't the first time that this had happened. This wasn't going to be the last. It was just a consistent cycle that we needed to get out of. And at that point, we had to have a very serious conversation of, what do we do now? Because things didn't change. So obviously that's whenever the divorce came up. And we had tried quite literally everything. So whenever we decided to do a divorce, there was a lot of thought that we put into that. And again, it's not easy emotionally or financially. And it's always seen as like the easy way out, but that's not always the case. Sometimes two people just aren't meant to be together, and that was what we had kind of fallen into. So we had changed a lot in the 8 years, and unfortunately we just didn't grow together. And our life goals had changed throughout then, and they just weren't the same anymore. So things happen, and I wish him nothing but the best. But like I said, marriage just wasn't for the two of us together.
Am I the asshole for telling my new coworker it was misleading of him to be wearing his wedding band when he is a widower? A couple of weeks ago, we had a new employee hired at the company. He's a good guy and a widower named James, 36. And to my knowledge, his late wife passed away 8 months ago. Me, 32 female, and the other coworkers got along well with him. However, I noticed that he is still wearing his wedding band on his finger. It kind of confused me a bit, and I couldn't help but bring it up with him while on lunch break. We talked, and I pointed out that he was being very misleading by still wearing his wedding band when he's a widower. He looked quite bothered by what I said, but I tried to explain that I think that he was giving people the wrong idea or impression about his relationship status, since he's technically single and on his own right now. I don't want to sound cruel, but I am speaking from a technical angle. James said that he didn't give it much thought, meaning he doesn't care what people think. and that even if he wasn't wearing his wedding band and some woman approached him, he would still turn them down since he's obviously not interested. For some reason, things got awkward and everyone stopped eating and just stared at James and at me. I told him I don't know, but that really felt generally misleading of him, as in making people think he is in a relationship, married, when he is not, regardless of how he felt about being in a relationship. He got upset, called me rude, and said that I repeatedly disrespected his marriage and his late wife's memory with what I said, then took his stuff and walked away. My coworkers said regardless of who is right or wrong, though some said he overreacted, there was no reason for me to bring this up in the first place and cause a scene and make James upset with us like that. Now he's not speaking to me and the others who sided with me. So, am I the asshole? Did I overstep or did he overreact? Oh boy. Okay, the top comment coming in with 70,000 upvotes. You're the asshole. A wedding ring isn't a sign to others you aren't available. It's a commitment to a person you love.
Am I the asshole for telling my husband that he should have married someone who wasn't Muslim if he wanted family Christmas? So I, 33 female, am Muslim born and raised, and I am living with my husband, a Christian, 37 male. This argument happened around the start of December when we found out I was pregnant. My husband knows I don't celebrate Christmas due to my religion, and I accept that he does. So on the 25th, he goes to his family to celebrate, and I go to see my family, or some of my Muslim friends, for a chat and catch up. So when my husband came home around 10 p.m. on the 26th, I asked how his family is, and how the day was, basic things. My husband then says, "It was great. I can't wait until next year we'll be celebrating with the little one, a new member of the family." I then asked that if he really thinks our child will be celebrating Christmas, and he says yes, they will be celebrating whether or not I like it. I said maybe we could do Christmas with your family one year and then go visit mine the next, but he was adamant about our child celebrating Christmas every year. And I just said that will go against my culture and religion, but I was being accommodating. But he wasn't, with the 1 year and 1 year off, but he just said he feels like I'm disrespecting his culture and religion. I said if you think you get to make all the cultural and religious shots around here, he's wrong and shouldn't have married a Muslim. He got really silent and is not talking to me, saying I escalated blowing things way out of proportion, and it's getting to him a bit. So, am I the asshole?